Hey, what's going on, guys? It's the governor over here at the Madhouse. Today we're in a Kroger parking lot working on a Mack. So this is an MP8 engine, and what we got going on with it is we came out here yesterday and we put a fuel filter base on it with the primer handle in it. So the primer handle's non-serviceable and you got to replace the whole base. What it was doing is this thing would run for a little bit once you could get it primed up if you filled the filters up, and then it would slowly start to die like it was sucking air somewhere. So immediately we found that the primer handle, the seal was blown out, and it was blowing fuel at the top of it, and it barely primed the truck at all. Sometimes these things do go bad. 9 times out of 10 they don't, and what's going on with it is the actual cup inside the head, all right, has lifted and it's causing compression to back up into the fuel system, and that's what blew that seal out. All right, the only way to fix this problem, it's kind of hard to diagnose it because the injectors are actually still good, but the cups have went bad in it. So they make a kit for this thing. They're notorious for it. So today we're going to show you how to remove injector cups and install a new 6-pack of injectors into a Mack MP8. I got my buddy Skyler helping me today. This is kind of a big job, and we're going to get this thing knocked out. We've already started removing things. We're trying to get the valve cover off of it right now. So we're going to walk you through this whole operation. It's kind of a pain in the ass and it takes a while, so roll your sleeves up and get ready if you're going to try this out. So as you see, Skylar's going ahead. He's removing the cross tube. All right, so we can go ahead and get the valve cover off. We've already got the intake off of it and all that stuff. You need to go ahead and drain the coolant in this thing, because when you pull the injector cups out, if you don't drain the coolant, you're gonna flush the cylinders full of coolant, and then you're gonna have a really big problem, such as hydrolocking this thing and etc. So wanna go ahead and pull all the coolant out of this thing. We went ahead and did that before we got started, and we're stripping it right now. So once we get the valve cover off, we'll start to remove the rocker assembly and kind of give you a walkthrough of that and pull the injectors out. Once we get to the point where we're doing the injector cups, I'll give you a full walkthrough of that. It's very tedious and you got to be very careful because you could damage some things, and then we'll put this thing back together. Thanks for joining us today. Continue to watch as we go through this whole scenario. So just a little bit more explanation on this. So whenever you're having this issue, these Macks are notorious about it. What's going on is when that compression is backing up in the head into that cup, it's causing the fuel to aerate. All right, and it's pushing all that compression back through the system, and it's all bubbling and stuff of that nature. That's what's causing it to start dying, because it's not allowing the fuel to get to the injector. Again, the only way to solve this problem is put new cups in it. There's no other fix for it. So yeah, it sucks. Mack engines are notorious about this. So if you're interested in buying a Mack, buyer beware. This guy just purchased this a week ago. He's put 400 miles on it. So yeah, be careful. All right, guys, so we went ahead and unbolted our rocker shaft, all right, and we've got it out of the way. You need to try and get that out of the way so you got room to work in here. They make a tool to kind of pull it back and set it backwards, but it's just better to have it out of the way whenever you're doing this, so we got more room to work. So right now we're gonna go ahead and pull the injector hold down bolts. Once we get all those out, we can go ahead and pull off our valve pads. All right, and we're going to start pulling the cups. So we're going to come right back once we get all these injectors out, start pulling the cups. But like I said, pull your injector hold down bolts. You'll have to pop your injectors out. I usually use a lady foot or a crowbar or something of that nature, and then pop those out, and then we're going to get started. All right, guys, so we went ahead and got the injectors out of this thing. When you look down in it, you can see, you know, the injector cup sitting down in here. Here's one of the new ones. This is what an injector cup looks like. All right, there's two tools to remove this and to install it. All right, first you have your remover, and it looks something like this. All right, whenever you do this thing, what it does, it just reaches in and grabs the inside of it. So you stick this inside, and then once you start turning it, it spreads the bars on the inside of it. All right. Once you spread the bars, you start turning the top nut, start backing it out, and it'll actually lift it up. Now this whole tool sits down inside the injector base. Now the thing about it is once you get that in there, you take your injector lock and put on top of it, and then tighten the bolt all the way down, and it holds this thing down inside the injector part. Once you start twisting it, it'll pull the actual cup out. So once you got the cup out, then you need to install it. So first thing you want to do is clean up your hole really good. So get you a little rag, stick down in there, clean it up, make sure nothing falls in there, of course. Clean it up. Also, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and suck the cylinder dry right now, because a lot of fuel, whenever you pull the injector out of it, goes down top of the cylinder. So you want to suck all that fuel out of there. That way it doesn't hydrolock whenever you get ready to turn this thing over and you get done with it. So once you got everything cleaned up really good on the inside, the whole 9 yards, then we can start the install. There's an O-ring that goes at the top of this. You put your O-ring on it. Let's go ahead and lube that up with white lithium grease. On the bottom right here of the cup, what I like to do is take a little bit of red Loctite and put around it. You don't need it on the stem at all, but put some Loctite, red Loctite right around here on the base. Once you got that in there, you take this piece out right here. All right. And you want to be very careful with this piece, because you can break this, and if it falls down into the engine, you're screwed. All right. You're going to put your injector cup in there. You're going to stick this back in the center of it and screw it in to where it's finger tight. All right. Once you got that in to where it's finger tight, you're going to let it drop down. What you need to do, what I do, is I always lube this tip right here with some grease. All right. And then it's going to hang like that. But before that, go ahead and slide that down. And you want to tighten this nut down on top of it so it's smooth with it. Once you do that, you can stick this down in there, get you a little hammer, and tap it in. All right. That's going to tap it all the way in past the O-ring and seat it. Once it's seated, all right, you want to hold your top nut and continue to turn this nut. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull this stem through this injector cup. And that's where you need to be gentle, careful. Don't bend this, don't rock it or anything. And you see it won't go through there right now, but as you're turning this nut, it's going to flare the tip inside the head to lock this injector cup in there. All right, and then once it pulls through it, then you can pull your whole installation tool out of it and then go to the next one. Like I said, make sure everything's clean. Remember your Loctite, remember your white lithium grease, and go to work. Be careful, because you can break this tip. You don't want that to fall down in the engine. All right, after about 5 to 10 uses out of these, it's good to replace them. You can buy them at Cummins or Mack or Volvo, and they sell the new tip for it. And so that's all. We're going to go ahead and install these things, and then get to putting this thing back together. Keep watching. All right, guys, we kind of got a little ahead of ourselves and went ahead trying to get this thing done. So we already got the injectors seated. All right. We torqued those to 19 foot-pounds and did a 180-degree turn on them. Once we got those in there, we set our rocker bridge up here. Our rocker bridge torqued to 40 foot-pounds, and we did a 130-degree turn on it. All right, so everything's already set. We're hooking everything else up. We're gonna put our rocker caps back on, and then we'll be able to set the valve cover back on it. Once we get the valve cover set back on it, we'll go ahead and finish assembling the truck. We'll throw some coolant in it and prime this thing and get it running and see how we did. All right, guys, so we got our MP8 back together. We just filled it up full of coolant. We went ahead and primed this thing before we filled it full of coolant, so we're gonna give it a run. The trick is, you know, with this aeration problem and stuff of that nature, if this thing runs for about 5 to 10 minutes, you're in the go. If it shuts down before then, it's still aerating. So we got all that done. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up. Skylar's gonna do that. We're gonna let this thing run for a little bit. Once it heats up, this thing's due a regen, so we're gonna go ahead and put it in regen too. Another thing as well, before we started it up, we went ahead and accessed the ECM and we uploaded the trim files to the injectors. So you need to make sure you do that. That way you're getting maximum fuel mileage. Each injector is coded on the top, and you just program that in on program mode. So went ahead and took care of that, and we're gonna get ready to run this thing, get it going, and make it happen.